It's episode 59 of the Improv London podcast. I'm your host, Stuart Moses, and this week's guest is Julia Mitelman. Hello.
I'm Julia.
Hello, Julia. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Stuart?
I'm very well. And this is one of the more exciting rooftop locations that I've recorded in.
Yes.
I feel that this is going to be the thing now, that I will refuse to record anywhere unless it's on the rooftop in... Are we in trendy Shoreditch?
We are in trendy Shoreditch.
Is Shoreditch still trendy?
I believe so. I hope so. I work here. This building that we're sitting on actually has the famous Banksy on the side wall.
Does it really?
So we are in the hippest of the hippest part of London.
Nice. I just resisted the temptation to lean over the wall to have a look there because I feel that would be...
dangerous.
That would be dangerous. Don't do it. Don't do it, kids. Don't do it, kids. Art, but, safely. So you are you're involved in a group called Troopless.
Troopless, yes.
Are you in charge of Troopless?
Not quite. We have a democracy,
Really?
which has worked for us. I've heard that this is not common in improv groups, but we all met at a workshop led by Faye Bran on short form storytelling, and we were all at the pub afterward, all sitting at the same table. I remember this clearly, and we all were looking at each other, and around the same time just said, we're all Troopless. And then there was that moment of, like, from a movie, everybody looking at each other like, oh my god, that's the name, and now we're a troupe. So that's one of the entry requirements to be in Troopless, is that you have to, at the time that you entered, not be in any other troupes.
Right. Actually, that's a really good idea, and I have these sort of rules that I think are slightly too extreme normally to share, but I would love that. I would love it if you were only allowed to be in one group.
One group at a time?
Yeah.
That would be interesting, yeah. You'd commit, for sure.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it would mean that if you I'm going to come across as a not very nice person here, but it's like, as much as I love the same old faces, sometimes it'd be nice to see different faces.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
So that you'd switch? No, totally switch from group to group. That's fair. I think the struggle there is there's lots of different formats and types, and so I think if you wanted different goals out of things, it could be fun to be in more than one group. All of us are now in more than one group, actually, so we've broken our own rule. If we got kicked out, we wouldn't be allowed back in.
It's good that there are rules and you're strict.
There are
about
so
this.
many rules. We're very strict. Improv is about rules. We all know this.
Yes, exactly. How else do we know who's doing the best if we don't have rules to follow? I'm pretty sure that's what I learned.
That's what Martin Luther King said.
The founder of Improv.
Yes.
So, with Troopless, what was the format when you started? How'd you get organised?
Yeah, so because we took a short form workshop, we thought, okay, let's just do short form, and there aren't that many short form groups out relative to long form as well, so we thought, oh cool, we'll be adding to the variety a bit. And we invented our own format, which is called Pixar Theory.
Wow.
And basically, we all went to Bill's, which is our team headquarters branded. Not yet sponsored by Bill's, but who knows? And we all went and talked about what we wanted to create. And one common theme that arose was just having that audience delight. We really wanted to be open to non-improvisers. So from the perspective of being highly technical, I can appreciate groups that are highly technical, love watching them, but we ourselves did not want to necessarily be a group that was known for that. We would rather be known for making the audience laugh and lean forward, as we say, in their seats. And so we thought, okay, well, what makes us delighted? One common theme that came up was callbacks and this feeling of there's a reason to everything, and you discover that later. So justification, basically, we enjoyed. So we created this format where, do you know what Pixar Theory is?
No, I don't.
It's this common fan theory that all Pixar movies are located in the same universe.
Oh, right.
And so they don't really cross over, but the idea is that they could have existed within the same world. And so we thought we're going to take that as inspiration, and so we do a bunch of unrelated short form scenes for about 15 minutes, and then we play a game of Storyteller Die where we try to unify every scene that you've seen so far that has been unconnected, and we intentionally don't repeat characters. We try to change all the locations, and then we see through a narrative story how one character from what you've seen goes around and experiences the lives and worlds of all the others.
Wow, that sounds really fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's really challenging.
I know. I was being challenged just thinking about it then, and not actually doing it. That was my challenge face. But that sounds great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we've enjoyed the challenge. Sometimes it works better than others. We just had a show on Saturday at the Nursery Theater, which I think was the best version of this game that we've played yet, because we just remembered the most things. That's part of the struggle, is just remembering your own callbacks. So we think, and we got a chuckle every time we'd reference something that had already happened. So we hope that it created that effect of feeling like the whole night was tied in together at the end.
Yeah, I mean, how do you remember stuff? That's something I struggle with when I'm on stage. I'm like, even when I'm improvising a song, sometimes I'm struggling because I can't actually remember what the beginning of the song was like. Or if I want to go back to the verse, I'm like, I can't actually remember what that was.
Yeah.
Is it just practice?
Totally. I think so, yeah. I personally try to stay in the mindset then, kind of have it in the back of my mind when we're playing of like, check a checklist of what characters we'd encountered or something memorable about each point. So while I'm playing, I'll kind of have that buzzing in the background.
So you're very much like Sherlock in his mind palace.
Yes. Oh my God, the mind palace. I wish I was as good as Sherlock at the mind palace.
I feel that he would be a terrible improviser.
Perhaps. That's an interesting question. I would love to see a show where somebody plays Sherlock. Like, there's the Napoleon. I love have you seen
Charlie Martins? Yes,
yeah.
Yes,
oh my God,
yes.
That's one of my favorites. And I'd be curious to see the same show but with Sherlock instead of Napoleon.
Well, I mean, the spontaneous Sherlock, but I don't. And I've seen. What I would want to see is the Benedict Cumberbatch incarnation of Sherlock.
Yes.
What I would want is the real sort of very specific kind of like, we're not just doing Sherlock Holmes, we're doing this particular version of Sherlock Holmes and improvising in that style. That's what I'd want to see.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you. I think we have so many shows here, left and right. Nursery Door, we talked about earlier.
Nursery Door. That's a brilliant. Yeah, no, Nursery Door. Do you want to explain the Nursery Door?
Oh yes, I guess that was a podcast rather than a show. But
we could make it into a show.
We could make it into a show, but just, you sit at the door and you have the podcast running, and the whole night you just see the characters that you encounter. In this case, are real people, but, with some... Well, they're improvisers, so who knows what could happen. Anything could happen.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, it's got a really strong start when everyone's arriving, and then there's a big gap of about 3 hours in the middle where nothing very much happens.
We don't say anything. It's just silence. That's what it feels like to sit at the nursery door, I have to say.
And then at the end, you have a bit where everyone's leaving and saying goodbye to everyone.
Yeah.
So it's a 3-act structure, essentially.
There you go.
But just with a really,
Proper
really boring...
middle. We can all read together in that time. So when you're listening to the podcast and it's just silent for the middle, you do what the person at the nursery door is doing, which most people read.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
What do you read when you're on the
door at
the
good question. Usually I read Time Out magazine, which I'd stolen from that day or a few days earlier, because I almost always did it on Tuesdays. Or BuzzFeed. Or wait, I should say proper things. I read the classics, obviously. Shakespeare.
Working through Trollope
Jane
in order
Austen.
from the beginning,
Exactly. I read the Bible 3 times.
3 times, so which translation?
All different ones.
Oh, it's good. It's good to compare.
The last one was an emoji version, which was an interesting experience. Dude, that's another thing you can make. Full of ideas today.
Yeah, the emoji improv show. That needs some work.
I like it.
So with Troopers, and so where did the idea of, because I love the idea of taking disparate elements and then weaving them into the same fictional universe, and I have often done that with lots of other things. Where did that impulse come from?
It's a good question. I don't know. We wrote down. It was very like bureaucratic. We wrote down our goals, and then we brainstormed ways we could reach our goals.
Brilliant! No, I love that. I think that's amazing.
I have it somewhere, not with me, but I still have all the notes. We had a second format which was totally different, but achieved the same goals of getting the audience feeling involved and part of something bigger. I guess that's really where it came from. We thought, well, weaving everything together and giving it a sense of purpose may help with that. The other idea, which was in a format we have not yet tried out, called Etch-a-Sketch, which is we wanted to give maximum control to the audience. We decided we weren't ready for this, but basically we would play games where the audience was fully in charge of everything. So if we played New Choice, the audience would be shouting it out. But further than that, the audience would be responsible for all ends of scenes, all sweeps and edits.
Wow.
And we would invite the audience to come up on stage, whoever wants to, at any point. And they could play, they could introduce a game, they could do whatever they wanted so that they felt partly responsible for the show as well. And so if it was bad, it wasn't entirely our fault. But also if it was good, they could share in the joy.
Yeah.
We decided we weren't ready for... We wouldn't know what to do in many of those cases. But, still pending, maybe one day.
No, it's a great idea to get the audience involved, although I don't know if you're... how much the audience would... I don't know. How much the audience want to get involved? I mean, it's fine to call things out from the audience, audience.
Yes.
That's the word I'm thinking of. But whether you'd actually want to get up on stage and, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would, but then I'm not an audience
definitely.
member. Not a normal audience member anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, partly we were curious to see what would happen. Like, if nobody shouted out or did anything, we would just stand there on the stage. Just to see how long it took for anything. We wanted to be like puppets, where the audience could just be string masters and have fun playing with kind of they would be the directors, I guess, effectively. But,
right.
But now I can see why that may not have fully worked. But, to be determined.
It's good, yeah, it's good to have those ideas and to kind of, record those ideas, not necessarily on a podcast, but that's a very good place to do it. So you don't lose them, because it's, you do have all these ideas and you are throwing them out, and it's easy to think, oh, I'll remember that idea, and then, it just goes. So, and I really like the idea that you actually set out what you were trying to achieve with the group, and then actually, although we sort of laughed about it, it is really nice if you are all aiming towards the same thing. Yeah,
we found, I think maybe that's why it's worked with we don't have a director. We rotate through coaches because we just like having different perspectives, and also folks usually can't commit for too long. So we had Andrew Gentili coach us for a while, and we just had our first session with John Agapew yesterday, so that was awesome. He's brilliant, and Andrew's brilliant as well. But we found the goals help unify us, and then we take turns directing when we don't have a coach there, and it's just it's worked so far.
Cool. And you rehearsing weekly?
Yes, every week, yeah.
Cool.
And we do shows maybe once or twice a month or so. I need to get more on that, actually. Been lucky so far with just openings in places, but we'll get more proper about it in the fall, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, that sounds brilliant.
Although Mike, one of our troupies, Mike Bowker, is a brilliant social media manager. He's so on it all the time. He also loves photoshopping things, so he's just constantly making posters. Like, every show has a custom poster with the date and time and everything, and he creates a cover photo version of it, and he changes on Facebook and everywhere else all the things, and he schedules the posts as well, so it's great.
I mean, it's really useful if you've got someone in the team who is really keen on that side of things, and for whom they just do it because it comes naturally to them.
Yes.
Are there other roles in the group of people that have fallen into that sort of admin side of things?
Yeah, we have one guy, Joel, who does all of our rehearsal bookings. I do most of our show bookings. And I think we just rotate out kind of otherwise, yeah. So it's worked out well. It's a very democratic, sometimes it could work system. I say this, but watch, I'm jinxing something.
No, I'm in favour of democracy. I mean, it has its flaws, but I think it's the best system we've got.
For life or for improv?
I was thinking about life, but also improv. I think with many improv groups, they would like to think they're democratic, but then they need somebody to actually take charge and drive it.
Yeah, I could see that. As if no one's responsible, it's hard to figure out, who does what and things.
I think we'd all like to run groups like that, but I'd be interested to know how many truly are democratic.
Well, if we go down in a major blaze, I'm happy to come back and tell you all about it.
We were wrong. Well, let's hope that doesn't
knock
happen.
on wood.
So, you mentioned that that everyone in the group is also members of another group, and you're part of Story Kitchen.
I am, yes.
What's that like?
Oh, I love Story Kitchen. So it's a huge group. We have, I think, 23, 25 members, somewhere around there. And folks of all different experience levels, so that's awesome. And we play mainly 2 formats, so theater sports and maestro. Started off with theater sports, and we started maestro this year, which are both competitive improv, kind of. We say it's not a competition, it's a show about a competition.
Right, okay. But does that stop people getting competitive?
I mean, I think it's all friendly. It's very mischievous competition. So, for example, if you end up jumping into a scene, so if you're playing theater sports, it's team versus team. And so if the other team is going, but you see an opportunity to help out, to create something, to scene paint, to change something, we definitely love and encourage that type of behavior, and I think genuinely everyone feels very rewarded for it, and part of it, so even if you don't get those points, there are points because it is a competition.
Yes.
If you don't get those points, it doesn't matter because you still feel like part of it. And
yeah.
For theater sports, we play for the wooden spatula, the silver whisk, and the golden ladle.
Wow.
So the stakes are high.
Yeah.
And in Maestro, we play for a 5-pound note, which is hidden behind a frame, so no one can take it out. So the stakes are even higher.
So with theatre sports, is it a series of challenges?
Yes.
So how can you give me an example of a challenge?
Yeah, definitely. So there's 3 rounds, and the challenges, who issues the challenges differs by round. Usually round 1 is judges challenge, and then 2 and 3 are teams challenge each other. So they could be anything from something simple like, I challenge you to the best scene about a secret, to I challenge you to the best scene that's lit and sounded by the techies. Or it could be more complicated. I challenge you to the best scene dubbed by the other team. We love that. Or involving an audience member. I've heard, we haven't used this one. I have it in my back pocket. But I challenge you to the best scene in the time that it takes an audience member to eat a donut. And you give them the donut, and you have them stand on the corner of the stage and eat the donut, and you have to keep playing until they're done with the donut. So I'm excited for that one. We like to have fun. We've had ones where we've played a game where there's 3 bowls of water, and only one person could ever have their head out of the bowl of water at a time. So you have the scene where the improvisers are just standing in front of the bowls of water, like face first in it, and they're listening, so their ears are not in the water, but mouths otherwise, yeah, and so they have to hold their breath and take turns and really share. Teaches you have to really share the spotlight, because you have to be mindful of other people holding their breath, and so that was fun. We had another one with pies as well, like whipped cream pies. That so we have a tiebreaker called the hat game, where 2 players wear hats, but they can't talk about the hats, but they have to try to get the hat off the other person. And they play out otherwise a normal scene. So we did this hat game, but with whipped cream pies instead, and that turned out marvelously, as you can imagine. We actually accidentally covered the first row of the audience in whipped cream, so that was unfortunate. But you never know what you get with theater sports.
No,
it's always an adventure.
So, would you say that group was run as a democracy?
No, I would say, well, but that I think is necessary, actually. So we have a director, Faye, who's brilliant, and I think when you have that many people, it's quite difficult to run it as a democracy.
Having spoken to Faye, I'm very well aware that it's not a democracy.
Yeah. But it's great, though, because she enables, I think, everything that we that we're able to get happen. I mean, it's hard. I think it's quite hard to chase down people, and you know, there's rehearsals and then shows, and she has to cast all of the shows as well. So because it's a rotating basis, not everybody necessarily gets to play every show, and it depends if you're available. So I think she's done a great job of that, and we've tried to as well. Particularly recently, we've started embracing new roles. So, for example, myself and Jess, who is also in Troopless and in Story Kitchen, we are the new maitre d's of Story Kitchen,
Right.
aka the social chairs.
So what does that involve?
So we're just planning like dinners and karaoke nights and other kinds of things, so that there's team bonding, optional of course, but and then there's folks who deal with press releases and not press releases, like getting the word out about shows to the press is what I mean, and other people who handle bookings and things like that. So it is the work, I think, is shared, but it's really good, I think, to have that single point of direction leader, because otherwise I think it would be chaos.
Yes. So when you're performing in Story Kitchen or as part of Troopless, what could somebody else do if they were going to be in a scene with you that would delight you?
Ooh, that's a great question. Oh man, I love unexpected things like reversals. So for example, yesterday we had rehearsal, and
Is this Troopless or Story?
Troopless,
Yeah.
and we had the suggestion for a relationship of dentist and patient, and Jess and Mike came out, and Jess is standing over Mike. He's clearly in a dentist chair, mouth open, and Jess puts on this like child voice and goes, "Oh, Daddy, I'm so excited that you let me play with your own teeth with the real tools," and things like that. So I loved that. I loved because when they walked onto the stage, I thought it was just going to be a typical dentist and patient scene, but she reversed it so that the dentist was in the chair being operated on. So it's things like that, the unexpected twist, whether it's from the beginning or just somewhere along in the scene. I love those kinds of things, and I'm always looking for opportunities to do that as well.
Yeah.
Josh Bland-Burrell called me a stabby improviser, as in I'm going to find the one thing that other people want, their character wants, not the improviser, and I'm just going to like poke it and stab it until to heighten, until we're basically like not giving in until we reach the conclusive height of the scene. So he calls it a stabby improviser.
Yeah, can you just expand on that? Just explain.
Yeah, so it's a type of game, I think, effectively, although I'm not an expert yet. I'm still halfway through my Monkey Toast level 1 course. But it's a type of game where you discover what another character wants, and you withhold that, and you play with. So, for example, yesterday we had a great one of this as well, where there was this clown who loved sugar. And so I brought in some kale, told him we'd run out of sugar, I'm sorry. And then the next person came in, and he was an environmentally friendly clown. So the guy said, "Oh, I'm sorry, the circus bear is now extinct." So all kinds of things. So you figure out in this case, the clown just wants to be environmentally friendly and is obsessed with sugar. And you do everything in your power to not get that, so that you get an emotional reaction out of it until you've reached sort of the ridiculous maximum. And then there are different ways I find as well of dealing with that. You can either just heighten till you've reached the absolute maximum height you can, and that's the scene. Or sometimes people can surprise you, and you can find an interesting twist or exception, or like a clever pivot to the scene as well. I like playing objects. That's fun.
You like playing objects?
Yeah.
What sort of objects do you like to play?
Just like non-human thing. One of my favorite scenes I think I've ever seen. Well, I'm biased, but it was a Story Kitchen scene. I wasn't in it, so I feel less biased. The prompt, I think, was dishwasher. And all of the players, there were 4 players, and they took different poses where they were playing different dishes in the dishwasher, which was hilarious because they were also all like slightly shaking side to side, so you could see that the dishwasher was on, and they were gossiping about the family who owns them, and one of them was like a fancy dish plate. I was trying to figure out why they had been out of the cupboard after not being in the cupboard for so long, and you discovered basically that the father was having an affair through their conversation. So it was just a lovely sort of flip on, that's what I mean by the unexpected.
Yeah.
When you say dishwasher, I would expect to see a scene with people loading a dishwasher somehow related to that, instead of the dishes in the dishwasher. So that kind of stuff is lovely.
Yeah, that's lovely, yes, definitely. And you're also involved in the organisation of the nursery and
a little bit.
Slapdash?
Yes.
What are you doing for Slapdash?
So I am officially, this is a good spreading of the word. I'm looking for commercial partnerships for the nursery, for Slapdash specifically, but also in general for the nursery. So basically I've been talking to lots of Airbnb owners and hotels and alcohol distributors and things like that to see if we can get donations or partnerships, sponsorships.
Have you been speaking to popcorn distributors? Because I feel
that's a great idea.
Get more popcorn.
Ooh, okay, that's going on my list. Genuinely. But we want to make the experience as fantastic as possible for the performers, for the audience members, and as cheap as possible. And obviously the nursery is a non-profit, so anything works for that. But yes, so basically I'm just trying to help out with getting all the cool stuff. T-shirts as well, we're trying to get printed, and I mean, the more swag the better, right? So.
And what was the thinking? Did Jules look around the room and go, who's the most respectable person here?
Oh, I wish.
It's going to be Julia. Let's get her talking to big business to get the swag for Slapdash. Is that how it works?
Oh, no, I wish, man. No, this all actually came out of a joke that I made. We were at our first Slapdash meeting, which we didn't have any roles or anything yet. We were just meeting up, and I had said, I'm so excited, we should try to get lots of free stuff because, it's a non-profit. Who doesn't love free stuff? It's a charity, it's a non-profit rather, and there's probably a lot of opportunity. When I was a student at uni, I was able to work with a lot of the local businesses to get stuff when we needed for, I used to be, fun fact, I used to run this talent management agency.
Wow.
So for some of our, for students, so for some of our launch parties and things like that, I was able to get cool stuff locally, and so I had said, we should really look into who's around, who might be looking for exposure and things like that, because this is a great community and a great way to spread the word about things. So that's when Jules turned to me and was like, all right, you're going to be responsible for partnerships. And Jules's word is law, so that's what happened.
Brilliant. So how did you get involved in the world of, was it talent management? Talent management. How was this?
When I was in high school, I really wanted to go into business, but I was obsessed with theater.
Right.
And
that old classic.
So I was like, I can put those two together, maybe. And so I started this agency on campus for student artists, and basically we would connect student artists with the folks who could provide services that would help them go from amateur to professional. So things like web design, headshots, mastering albums. We were lucky enough to have a few recording studios on campus. So there were a lot of resources available. They were just very separate from each other. So we were kind of the hub. We became the hub of managing talent on campus, and had a few artists who made it into iTunes, and so it was a fun agency.
You mentioned a love of theatre. Is that where your love of improv? How did you get started?
Yes, totally. So it's funny, I was just having this conversation with someone. There's
was
different
it being
schools.
Recorded for a podcast?
No, it wasn't being recorded for a podcast.
That doesn't count. Only counts if it's being recorded.
There's different schools of improv, different, styles, different beliefs. There's comedic and theatrical, I think, is one big divide, or not divide, but as in you can do different styles.
It's a thing.
Spectrum.
Thank you.
Yes. Stuart, for those of you listening at home,
Stuart
was miming a spectrum.
Spectrum ever.
That was beautiful. It was very clear.
It's good
what it
object
was.
work.
And yeah, it's a spectrum, I think. And so for me personally, I was trying to figure out, what do I like? What do I want to try and achieve as a next stage? And I think for me it boils down to the reason I started improv, which is the same reason I love theater, which is I love working with a group of people to create something that no one person could create. So it's purely about that feeling of teamwork.
Yes.
That to me is like euphoric, kind of, when you're on stage, or it could be in a rehearsal, but when you're with a group of people and you're so in sync with them and you just make things that no one person could have even thought of.
Yes.
That to me is the magical bit of improv. And yes, it's funny and that's amazing and it can be very beautiful and artistic, but I think the teamwork really is why I got into it.
Yeah, and it's the same for me. It's the shared universe that you create with the people you're on stage with, and that world that is more than you could create individually. That's what I love about it as well. So
Love it.
you are right. That is correct. That bit.
Oh, there's a bee.
That's one of the when you're
One of the
recording on
risks of
glamorous
rooftop
locations,
locations. He's gone now. Sorry.
That's all right.
He likes the lavender that's nearby. You guys should see the colors up here.
They are very
Just
well.
picture a really colorful roof. Is that descriptive enough?
I think
My scene painting needs work.
The rest, won't they? I mean, your object work's going really well, but it's hard to see that in an audio format. Yes. So how did you? What was your first class? Where was?
Oh, this is a good story, actually.
That's what I like to hear.
So, my first class was with Steve Rowe.
Right.
It was a beginner, it was one of the taster days for
right, yes.
Hoopla. And I took it with one of my coworkers, actually, because I was too scared to go by myself.
Brilliant. Yeah, good plan.
And so I convinced him to go with me. And we went, and it was amazing, and I loved it. And afterwards, I sent Steve an email. It was about a month after I had moved to London, which was February 2016. And so I emailed Steve afterward and said, hey, I really enjoyed that. I would love to learn more. I just got here, so don't really know many people. And he replied with the sweetest message that was this really long, like, okay, here's the breakdown of everything you need to know about improv. And it was amazing. It was just like, here are the different communities, here's Hoopla and the Miller, and here are all the classes and how they work and like how you get into a troupe and all this stuff, and it was amazing. And I went to a show at the Miller soon after, I think a few weeks later. And I was standing in the queue behind Andrew Marks, if you know him, and we started talking. He's half British, half American, kind of. He's British, but he grew up in America, so he can do both accents. So he started talking to me he slid into American accent when he was talking to me, and then a few of the other folks from Story Kitchen came over, and because we both had American accents and were talking to each other, they assumed we knew each other from like childhood. So obviously all Americans know each other. And so they encircled me into their group basically, and for the rest of the night they all sat around me. They signed me up for the jam, which ironically my first scene ever was with John Agapew. And I didn't know him at the time, and I have a photo of that scene which I showed him 6 months later. I was like, hey John, did you know that we've met before? And I specialize in creeping people out.
That's good.
I'm just kidding. To be clear, for the record, I am sane and normal.
I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to Madeline Hunter. I call her Madeline. Other people call her Maddie.
Oh, yes, Maddie.
There's a lot of creeping.
Oh, boy.
You're not the only person that's creeping people out, so I'm
that's
just saying.
funny.
Just check that out.
I love it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Shouldn't really advertise the podcast on the podcast. But anyway, check that
Nice.
out. If you're a fan of the creeping ladies of the London improv scene,
Oh, dear.
don't miss out on that
Oh,
one.
no, what reputation have I created? Regret the things you say.
Can you remember what? Yeah, can you remember the scene you did with John?
I was playing his daughter, and it was Father's Day.
Did he kill any puppies?
He didn't know. Is
Oh, nice.
is that a thing?
Well, blacked him out on one occasion when that was happening.
Oh my God.
No, I don't want to see this.
I don't remember that. That's surprising. He's committed. I love John's play.
He's great. He's great.
Go wherever is needed.
But sometimes I don't want to go there, and if I'm doing the tech, we ain't going there.
Then you're in charge. That's true. But that night, the performance at the Miller, there was a final scene at the end with Steve and a few other folks, James Witt and Liz Peters, and Faye Bran, a whole bunch. It was a theater sports. Oh, this must have been a different night because anyway, different theater sports night. And they did a final scene, and Steve had asked who in the audience had been in London for less than a year. So I raised my hand. I think it was the only person, actually. So he called them and he said, what's your name? Tell me about yourself. And he said, where are you from? And he said, what was the first thing that you noticed about British people? And I said, well, they're very polite. And so they proceeded to do this incredible musical medley number. That was like my hypothetical journey from America to London. And particularly I remember the taxi drivers in New York were super rude. And then I get to the border crossing and the British border control officer in the scene is like, oh, do you have your passport? And Liz was playing me and said, oh no, I'm so sorry, I must have forgotten it. And the officer was like, oh, it's fine, I'm sure you're fine, go on ahead. And then as she goes through the scene, everything's just happening. Also, there was a lot of tea involved. I remember everyone kept offering her tea, and it was just this absolutely beautiful moment. I think it was genuinely the first moment that I felt like I had found a new home. Yeah. Because obviously it was all very satirical and hilarious and fantastical, but it was so, to me still, it was like, oh,
yeah,
this is beautiful. Like, there are people here who understand me. And so for that reason, I feel like Steve really helped me feel at home in London.
Yeah.
So I love Hoopla. And he's said to me before, I've talked to him about this, he said actually that one of the goals of Hoopla is to create that community, particularly for folks who are new to London. He loves taking people in, everybody's dad. I feel like Steve is everybody's dad.
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting him in a little while and
yes,
calling him Dad. And see if he comments on that, or whether he just lets that go. I've now put that on the podcast. I'm now going to have to make that the game of the podcast.
Yes.
Call him Dad.
Call him Dad.
I don't know.
That would be. I'd love to see his reaction to that. Although now I can only see him as Motivational Lobster, which is my favorite bit that he's ever done, which is he dresses in a full head-to-toe lobster outfit, runs onto the stage and does like a Tony Robbins style, who are you? What are you doing? This is amazing. You can do anything if you set your mind to it.
You see, well, I'm a big Tony Robbins fan, and I'm a big Steve Rowe fan. I'm slightly agnostic about seafood, but I'm prepared
prepared to give it a shot.
2 out of 3, that ain't bad, so I will have to check that out.
Yes. Yes. Well, he at one point he stuck out his lobster claw. He goes, everybody get up. Everybody gets up. Take out your claw. You're holding a jar. Open the jar and eat from it. Everybody does it. He's like, do you know what you just ate? And a few people shout out, jam. He goes, no, ambition. So look out for Motivational Lobster.
Excellent. And the weird thing is that even though that is, it's satirical and it's silly, and just hearing you telling him doing that, I do feel a bit inspired.
Yeah. Totally. I feel like everybody left the theater at a high. Like, I can do anything, you're right.
And the fact that it's done with a bit of a sense of humour and a bit of edge probably helps people bypass their sort of cynical, sceptical side. So I don't know,
exactly.
Maybe that's
exactly.
the way forward.
I feel like you can't help it. If a lobster tells you can do anything, obviously you can do anything. It's a lobster, for God's sake.
I mean, it's the crustacean I trust the most when it comes to assessing my future.
If it was an oyster, we'd have other questions.
I mean, it's ironic because the world being your oyster, you would have thought.
Very good.
Sarcastic clapping.
No, I enjoy puns greatly.
That's my pun allocation for the year. Right. Okay. So, big, exciting final question.
Ooh.
I'm building it up more than it is. Okay. What is the classic go-to Julia Mitelman move? When you've done it, and then we're going to say classic Mitelman.
Like an improv or in life?
Oh, no, in life. I meant in improv.
In life.
Now I want to know in life.
Oh boy, what have I set myself up for?
Yeah, in life.
In life,
what's classic
it's
Julia?
probably reverting to Brooklyn, like just going back to forget about it. Or yesterday, I was going to the shop and just speak like a Brooklynite.
I mean, you do have the added advantage there that it is authentic
Yeah.
and realistic. So it's not like you've got a fake American accent that you just fall back on.
Yeah.
It's just a real one.
Yeah. Oh, but in improv, that's a good question. I don't think I even know what it is. My fallback character is probably a child, like a 4-year-old child.
Yeah.
I find that the easiest character to play, and I don't even want to think about why. Like, I don't want to psychoanalyze why I find children easiest to play.
Is it because you're relinquishing control of the scene to your scene partner?
Ooh, that's a good question. Maybe. Yeah. I find children, it's really easy to make game out of kids because you just make them not understand or misinterpret things. And you don't need to justify why. The justification is there. They're a child.
Yeah.
And then you can play with like what they've misunderstood or how they've misunderstood it.
Yeah.
Because in real life, I find that hilarious as well when kids just like. I'm trying to think of a good example now, and I'm completely blanking. But when they like have understood something the wrong way, but not in the way that you'd think was the wrong way.
And that brings us back to your love of the surprise and reversal.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yes. Oh, I wonder if I do have just a move that's a classic Mitelman move.
See, the thing is also, part of this is, so it's partly so other people can take that move and then use that move.
Love it.
Which is a good way of learning, but also if you rely on it too often,
Yeah.
people will be like,
You get stuck in the same patterns.
She mentioned that on the podcast. She needs a new move.
Oh.
So I'm trying to help you develop as an
thank
improviser.
you. That's so considerate of you. No, I genuinely appreciate it. I don't know. Give me a second. I'm gonna think about it.
I'm just going to admire the...
Please
London.
Admire the bees,
London,
the birds and bees. There are birds and bees, and that wasn't a euphemism.
Yeah, it's a really weird rooftop where you've got views of London. And,
there's a lot of plants up here.
yeah,
So.
there's not that much greenery. It's not that discreet. We could just finish.
Nah. No.
Although I quite like the bit at the end where people are going, oh, should I carry on listening? There might be a gem at the end.
Yeah,
You
right?
just like keep
I feel
guessing.
an existential pit right now, Stuart. That's what you've put me into, because I'm like,
That's
I don't have a move. I should have a move.
I mean, putting people into existentialist pits is very much what I do on this podcast, and that's my signature move. If
There
I can
you go.
maneuver someone into an existentialist pit, I'm there shoving
That's
them
the
over
Moses
the side.
move.
It's the Moses move.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if I have a... I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something now. Like I'm like 3/4 of an improviser instead of a whole. What have you done, Stuart?
Well, I mean, I hope I haven't gone around sowing
Broken me.
seeds of doubt in improvisers
No.
whose work I genuinely
I
admire.
have it.
Yay!
Hello, bonus gem. You might like this one. My move is in my head. I always just say, "What would Steve do?
Ah,
What would Steve Rowe do?"
yes.
And it often is something really silly and crazy. Sometimes it's something grounded. Sometimes it's variety. But that's what I've always have running in my head. What would Steve
What
Rowe
would
do?
Steve Rowe do? Nice.
Yes, the granddaddy of improv. Oh wait, that's Keith Johnstone. Kind of. Depends on what school you're in. Let's not get into that again. Now that I've rambled sufficiently at the end of this podcast.
That's brilliant. What would Steve Rowe do? Steve Rowe would wrap up the podcast and say, Julia
Very
Mitelman,
neatly.
thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Stuart. That was
Bye-bye.
awesome.
Thank you very
Bye,
much.
guys.
Bye.
I made this. That's improv!